The name of the town of Staines means stones, and it's thought to have come from a group of 9 stones mentioned in a 12th century charter of Chertsey Abbey, which delineated the boundaries of the Abbey lands, and was reported in Up Pontes by Christina Lake. Down to that Aire that stands in the Thames at Lodders Lake, and so along Thames by mid-stream to Glenhuth, Glanty, that is the M25 roundabout today, from Glenhuth by mid-stream along Thames to the Hooth, Hythe, before Neggan Stones. Neggan Staines is Saxon for 9 stones. The settlement is very ancient, with evidence of habitation from Mesolithic times. The Romans had a fairly important town here called Ad Pontes, by the bridges, as it was the place where the London to Silchester road crossed the Thames and Colne, and was about halfway between them, a day's march from each. St Mary's Church, 19th century, but on a site of a stone church built by St Erminidlis in 675, on a pronounced rise in the ground, also has a tradition of stones at the site, and this has been linked with the Neggan Stones Charter in the Staines Town Trail. But this is unlikely to be the site of the stones, as it is not near the Hythe, which is a riverside road, presumably originally a wharf, on the Egham Hythe side of the river. Looking at the map, there seems to be a definite visual convergence of ways, some of them broken and picking out the same alignment further on a site adjacent to the Hythe, now a roundabout near the present Staines Bridge. The site seems to be marked by a rough circle of trees. It's an unusual lay centre in that the lays don't cross at one point, as is usual, but rather skirts the edge of a small area, in the way more usually found at larger sites, such as camps and hill forts. Does this give us some idea of the size of the site? This picture of the Staines roundabout with the 9 stones of Winterbourne Abbas Dorset superimposed on it is intended to give an impression of what it might look like if the stones were still here today. This is a plan of the dowsing reactions obtained on August the 15th, 2002, when dowsing for the positions of the Neggan stones on the roundabout by Staines Bridge. It seems to indicate a generally oval north-south oriented stone circle with a central stone, 8 and the central one making 9. The alignments of the Egham Causeway and Thorpe Road seem to skirt the site, supporting the original idea that the lays describing the small area, rather than meeting at one point, indicates the size of the site. There is a metal box set in concrete in the centre of the roundabout, and this dows particularly strongly for a stone position, but it is not certain what this is. Prehistoric London by Nick Merriman mentions several ancient sites in the Staines area, particularly a Neolithic causewayed camp and a cursus at Stanwell, but does not give their exact locations, so some research was done on the Surrey Sites and Monuments record. This is an access database of the known prehistoric sites in Surrey, based at County Hall, Kingston, and available to members of the public by appointment. Precise grid references were given of all the sites, most of which are no longer present, and these enhanced the alignments found considerably, and even produced another line of 4 investigated sites. The cursus position was also located, and each of its 2 sections has a lay running along it. The most striking alignment is that of the Roman road coming from London to Staines. Now the A30 and Staines High Street, the alignment goes through the proposed site, although the Roman road diverges from it slightly to cross the river downstream of the present bridge. Was this to avoid the Neggan stones, which could have been quite sizable if the Romans bypassed them in this way rather than removing them? It's not known precisely where the road ran on the other side of the river. Several paved stretches have been found, but there could have been spurs as well as the main road. A stone monument near Great Foster's Hotel claims to mark the route, but others have theorised that it runs along the Egham Causeway. The Egham Causeway is another of the alignments converging on the proposed site of the stones. A lay which passes through a Neolithic and Bronze Age site by Runnymede Motorway Bridge. It passes across Cooper's Hill, Egham, through the Neolithic site with post holes, now at the southern approach of Runnymede Motorway Bridge, along the mean-following Egham Causeway, built in the 13th century against local flooding, a candidate for the continuation of the Roman road, for about a mile to the Neggan Stones roundabout, then through a crossroads and the Spelthorne Moot site. This is the site of the meeting place of Spelthorne Hundred in medieval times, a field called Spelthorne Pasture, shown on the Ashford Award map of 1811. The London stretch of the Roman road is also a lay, and it's interesting confirmation that the Romans used the old alignments in planning their roads, but diverged where practicality demanded it, often following another alignment. Coming from Black Nest, Virginia Water, it goes through the proposed Neggan Stones site, along Staines High Street, and is coincident with the Roman A30 to Feltham, from where it becomes a mean follower until Brentford. It goes through a church in Hounslow and two in Chiswick, then runs closely parallel to the A402 in Hammersmith, meeting another church there, and another coincident stretch of road. The third alignment is the one running up Thorpe Road, Egham Hythe, close to St Paul's Church there, which is visible from the Neggan Stones site. Coming northeast, it goes through Chobham Church, a tumulus near Longcross, a coincident stretch of the B388, the coincident Thorpe Road, the Neggan Stones site, crosses the Stanwell Cursus, and goes through churches in Hayes and North Harrow, and a prominent crossroads at Stanmore. It's possible that the Stan in the two names could indicate stones also. When aligning the site with St Mary's Church, Staines, which has the tradition of stones, the line is also found to go through south through St Peter's Church, Chertsey, from where another lay was followed some years ago. Going north, it skirts the fort at Gerrard's Cross, and through the ancient church at Amersham. The site of the Neolithic causewayed enclosure, mentioned in prehistoric London, is now junction 13 of the M25, although there is a picture of the crop marks in that book. It was excavated in 1961 to 63 and was found to have had inner banks which had been ploughed flat. Pottery of the type found at Windmill Hill in Wiltshire was found there. When aligned through the Neggan Stones, this alignment was found to pass through Weybridge Church, 19th century, but on the site of an older church. Coming north through the main crossroads at Paynes Hill, then passing through Weybridge Church and the Neggan Stones site, the line continues through a crossroads in Slough and a church and crossroads not together at Farnham Royal. 4 of the sites found from the Surrey Sites and Monuments record form another alignment. These are the Causewayed Camp, the Runnymede Bridge Neolithic site, a Bronze Age Iron Age enclosure on Staines Moor, and a Bronze Age enclosure ditch at Petter's Sportsfield, Egham. This alignment, when extended, goes through a church in Hayes and 2 in Boreham Wood. The Stanwell Cursus, a linear feature of parallel ditches at least 3 miles long, though its north and south ends had been eradicated before investigation, runs along the western edge of Heathrow Airport, from Stanwell to a point near junction 15 of the M25. It was originally thought to be a stretch of Roman road, then found to be a Neolithic cursus. It has 2 straight stretches, each of which has an interesting alignment running along it. The southern stretch, going south, aligns with the site of a Neolithic ring ditch at Shepperton Green and a church at Cobham. Going north, it goes through a moat in Chalfont St Peter. The northern stretch alignment, going south, crosses the Causeway Lay at the crossroads at Ashford, then continues through the Weybridge Monument to skirt St George's Hill, Hillfort. Going north, it goes through a crossroads at Old House Farm, Gerrard's Cross, and meets the St Mary's Staines Lay at Amersham Church. The Staines area seems to have had a prehistoric landscape which is comparable to the one in Wiltshire, with the Neggan stones and the cursus even seeming to parallel the Stonehenge arrangement. Also names such as Tothill Road and Knowle Park seem to be suggestive of older sites. It's now almost completely eradicated by the modern environment, but luckily the sites were investigated and their positions recorded just in time. The Stanwell Cursus, near Heathrow Airport. While I was doing the work on the Neggan Stones roundabout in 2002, I received the following email from Gloria Hazel of the stains.5u.com site. I was just looking through your site again. It's funny, when I was a kid back in the 50s, I went to school in Chertsey, Stepgates, and Mum used to take me on her bike and we used to go round the back of Chertsey Church, where the Abbey now stands, and across the golf course, where I saw UFO in 1986-7, back to Chertsey Lane where we lived. She always told me about the history of the area, and I always felt something special there at the Abbey ground. I still do. I love it there. The same with the Lammas and St Mary's Church. I've often wandered around the churchyard there searching for something. Anyway, I always felt something about the Staines roundabout too, and in actual fact lived not far from there, Bowes Road, back in the early 80s, until I moved to America. While in America, I lived first in New Jersey on the East Coast, and then stumbling one day upon another ancient site in Minnesota while on a trip, moved there a few years later. Pipestone, Minnesota is a very sacred site to the Dakota people, and it's where their ceremonial peace pipes come from. The site is on a vortex, and I believe it too is on a ley line, the same one that comes from Sedona, Arizona. That is also a very special place. I often wondered if it was the same one that runs through here, as the feelings were always that of being home to me. It's interesting that the three places mentioned, Chertsey Abbey, the Neggan Stones roundabout and St Mary's Staines, are actually on the same ley. But not only this, when the two places in America, Pipestone, Minnesota and Sedona, Arizona, are aligned on a great circle, this also passes through the West London area here in Britain and the area of the pyramids in Egypt. At this scale, it's impossible to be precise as to whether, for example, it goes through Staines or Chertsey, or if it passes through the Great Pyramid. The band has, as Lionel Beer pointed out, a scale width of about 100 miles, but it's certainly interesting in the light of what Gloria says in her email, although it could not be the Chertsey St Mary's ley, as it's not at the right angle. There is a ley which could be this one, though. This comes through a church in Windsor, runs along a long stretch of coincident track by Queen Anne's Gate, and through a spot which I call a sanctuary because of its feeling, through both memorials at Runnymede, which we found powerful on our field trip, particularly the Kennedy one, through the Pettersfield prehistoric site, through Laleham Church, Shepperton Multi-Junction, through the Prospect Tower at Claremont Garden, and skirting an earthwork near Epsom. Gloria also writes of a UFO sighting at Mixnam's Lane, very close to the St Mary's Staines, Neggan Stones, Chertsey Abbey ley, which actually runs along the other side of the roundabout, through part of the entrance to Thorpe Park. She writes, "The UFO was back in 1984 or 86. I came back from a holiday both years from America and can't remember which one it was. And I'd gone out with a couple of friends for the evening. One of them lived on a houseboat on the river just beyond the golf course. We were driving back with her in two cars to make sure she got back okay, as it was dark and we were behind her, and we drove around the road from Chertsey Staines Lane through Mixnam's Lane towards the golf course. A dark little lane that was not paved at the time. It may be now. I haven't been there for ages. Anyway, as we rounded a bend, I saw something above the trees. It was bright. I thought first it was a street lamp, then realised that there were none around there. So I said to my friend, 'What do you think that is?' She said she didn't know, and we did the usual da-da-da-da-da theme as a joke. By now, we were closer to it, and almost at the car park, where my friend would leave the car at the edge of the course, before you get to the buildings of the clubhouse. At this point we saw that my friend had stopped her car and was running towards us. We stopped and jumped out too, to hear Jill say, "Did you see that thing?" She sounded scared. For some reason at this point I decided to go and see what it was, and started to run towards it. My friends later told me I was shouting, "We have to welcome them," but I don't remember that. I just wanted to see more. I always say at this point, they decided they didn't want to have a crazy woman running up to them, so they took off running. They were originally just at tree level, but went higher very quickly, and I guess they were about at helicopter height, and they were off towards the St Anne's Hill area. Quite quickly at first, they seemed to slow down, and we watched them for a while, just every so often putting a spotlight beam down close to the ground, as if they were looking for something. The ship was not cigar-shaped, not round, but somewhere in between. And the thing I remember most vividly is the light. It was more like a halogen light, but back then we hadn't heard of them. It was bright and white. It also very quiet, no sound at all. Then all of a sudden we couldn't see it anymore. I realised I was a nutcase running after it, but I did it on impulse. My friends were mad at me because they said I could have been taken away. Guess I could have, but didn't think of it at the time. On watching a programme from the Ancient Aliens TV series recently, I was interested to see Giorgio Tsoukalos reporting on the experience of Jim Penniston, one of the witnesses to the famous Rendlesham Forest case. The incident was described on the website http://www.therendlesham-forest-incident.com/the_binary_codes.html. This involved a message apparently in binary code received by one of the witnesses, Sergeant Jim Penniston. This gave locations of some of the places on the Sedona-Pyramids ley proposed by Gloria Hazel, and an origin of the visitors which may also have been on it. In 2010 it was revealed by Jim Penniston that he initiated a download of information when he touched the pictorial glyphs on the craft of unknown origin during his investigations in the early morning hours of December the 26th, 1980 in Rendlesham Forest. 26-year-old Sergeant James Penniston was part of the three-man USAF security police team called to investigate the landed craft of unknown origin in Rendlesham Forest. The men with Sergeant Penniston were A1C John Burrows and A1C Ed Cabansag. Only Penniston and Burrows went into the woods to investigate the landed craft. Cabansag stayed near the truck as a radio relay for the men. Cabansag watched the mysterious pulsating multicoloured lights in the forest, while his two team members headed out on foot. As Penniston and Burrows approached the unusual lights, they noticed abnormal sensations on their hair, skin and clothing. It seemed as though the air was electrically charged. Also, a time distortion occurred. According to the men, the time seemed as though it was slowed and very difficult to move. Another odd characteristic was everything was void of sound. Now visible, the craft was sitting silently at the bottom of a berm, on the pine forest floor. Penniston cautiously approached the non-aerodynamic triangular black glassy craft. It was like nothing he had ever witnessed before or since. The craft had patterns of blue, yellow and red colours running through the surface as though part of the craft. It was very difficult to put into words what he was witnessing. Sergeant Penniston was versed in all types of aircraft. He was a United States Air Force trained aircraft observer and crash investigator. As part of his USAF advanced training, he studied both the NATO and Warsaw Pact inventories of aircraft. His up-close investigation of the craft included photographs, measurements and drawings, which he recorded into his USAF-issued notebook. He took special note of the strange pictorial-type markings on the side of the craft. These glyphs were logged by Sergeant Penniston. He also touched pictorial symbols etched into the glass-like surface of the 9-foot by 9-foot black triangular craft. When Sergeant Penniston put his hand on the etched symbols, which felt like sandpaper compared to the rest of the smooth moulded surface, everything became a brilliant bright white, much as the sighting of Gloria Hazel. He could neither see nor hear. He was alone in a brilliant bright white light. This occurred for an undetermined amount of time, and then his sight returned. He was standing next to the craft, facing the pictorial glyphs. The craft started to turn a vivid bright white colour, so bright in fact Sergeant Penniston thought it was going to explode. He took a defensive position nearby as the craft was engulfed in the light. The craft then lifted off, apparently 4 feet from the ground, manoeuvred between the trees, ascended to treetop level, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The following day, after touching the main largest glyph, back in his room, Jim was seeing ones and zeros in his mind's eye. Troubled by the revolving flashing images of ones and zeros he received from touching the glyphs, he felt compelled to write them down in a notebook. Upon completing the transfer to notebook paper, the image in his mind disappeared. Jim put his notebook away with his belongings and didn't think much about it again until the year 2010. Then, during a casual conversation with a researcher, he mentioned the codes and displayed the notebook. The researcher immediately recognized the ones and zeros as binary code and set out to help Jim decipher it. And it was decoded by professional binary code expert Joe Luciano at http://www.binarydecoder.info/main.php. There seem to be latitude and longitude references to significant places which some researchers have linked with Earth energy grids. The message reads: Exploration of Humanity 666-8100 52.0942532 north 13.131269W. This is the reference for High Brazil, the Phantom Island of Ireland. Continuous for planetary advance. Fourth coordinate continuot UQS CBPR before 16.763177 north 89.117768 west Caracol, Belize, Mayan ruins. 34.800272 north 111.843567 west Sedona, Arizona, regarded as energetic and spiritual, sometimes called the American Glastonbury. 29.977836 north 31.131649 east Great Pyramid in Giza, Egypt. 14.701 505S 75.167.043 west Nazca Lines in Peru. 36.256845 north 117.100632 east Taishan Q, China, known as China's holiest mountain. 37.110195 north 25.372281 east Potara at Temple of Apollo in Naxos, Greece. Eyes of your eyes. Origin 52.0942532 north 13.131269 west High Brazil. Origin year 8100. High Brazil is a mysterious island appearing on maps from 1325 to the 1800s. This map is from 1325. In Irish myth, it was said to be clouded in mist, except for one day every 7 years, when it became visible, but still could not be reached. Stories about the island have circulated throughout Europe for centuries, with tales that it was the promised land of saints or a paradise where advanced civilization lived. On most maps, the island was located roughly 321 kilometres, 200 miles off the west coast of Ireland in the North Atlantic Ocean. https://www.ancient-origins.net/unexplained-phenomena /Brazil-phantom-island-003-608. Does this imply that it's the craft's origin, on a par with other significant places, but possibly able to be submerged? The Sedona-to-Pyramids line, postulated by Gloria Hazel, could pass through it, as it goes through the southern part of Ireland before reaching Britain.